Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was created by Enzo, who's a beginning photographer from the UK. The image was shot with a Nikon D90 and 18 to 105 zoom. The exposure trio is ISO 200 f5.6 and 1/100th of a second. And in the backstory, Enzo says this is a palace guard in central London. Enzo says I wanted to capture the concentration of the guard and the stillness of the moment. So let's get into it. One of the things that I enjoy right away in this image is the beautiful quality of light. There's a really nice side light here that is creating a lot of dimension, and the guard himself. There's also a really strong feeling of layered light, moving from dark to a band of light back to dark. That really gives us a great feeling of depth. From Enzo's camera position here, this far area of the doorway or opening that is completely in the shade is creating some real nice separation. This has been shot almost perfectly formally symmetrical, and I think considering that the guard is concentrating and the guard is still, and considering that the space is very much one of these architectural spaces, the symmetrical, the idea of trying to line this up as much as you can in a symmetrical way was a really great choice. Another thing that I'm enjoying here is the red of the guard's uniform and how powerfully that is coming forward for me as the viewer. A lot of things to enjoy about the image. Another thing that I really like is some of the specular highlights that are happening in this side light. They're happening down here in the shoes. These accent or kicker light effects, which a lot of times is just a reflection of the light source itself and a subject or subjects, these little areas of specularity can sometimes become chaotic, but if not, we're seeing them here very simple. They can really help to add a lot of dimension to a photograph, and I'm enjoying that part of what's happening with the light. When I think about a perfect world variation of this image, one of the things that happens for me is I see this real strong idea of the framing comes up, and then that starts to go away. One nice thing about the side light and the exposure here that's leaving these areas very dark is it really does draw attention to the main subject. But for me, there's such a strong sense of the architecture. There's a light here in the shadow. All of this, to me, could actually help the composition. It could help me stay with it longer. It's all going to continue to frame the guard in a very powerful way. I can leave the corners dark so there can still be quite a strong feeling of the eye being contained. But I really think that in this case I would like to see more detail in the architectural framing. The other thing that this image makes me think about, and is probably I think the biggest possible takeaway from the video today, is just this idea of color, main subject, and when you want a color to come forward, it can be very nice if it's in its own space and that color doesn't have to compete with a color cast that is the same as the color or very close to the color everywhere else. And one of the things that's happening right now is you have this outrageous primary red of the guard's uniform, but then there's an enormous amount of red in the architecture. If we take that away, then we're going to, in an even more powerful way, start to say something about space and the main subject relative to the space that he's in. So here are the changes that I made in layers. I first came in and used the curves adjustment layer to add a lot more detail to the frame of the architecture around the guard. There's the before and there's the after. I particularly like bringing the detail into the point where we can see this light. I think the light is a very nice counterpoint to what's happening in the lower part of the guard with the black of the uniform and the boots. I think this part right here on the y-axis is helping to give us a sense of some formal symmetry, so that it's not just happening in the repetition of the arches and from side to side on the x-axis. I really like the way the light can help to balance with the bottom part. When I got to there, I came in and I got rid of a lot of the red in the background. So here's the before and here is the after. By neutralizing a lot of that red in the background, it really helps to do two things. It helps the main subject to be more of a singular idea, and because it does that, it also helps to create a greater feeling of space from near to far. If we want to talk about this shadow right here going all the way back to this shadow, the farthest reach of the shot. One more time. I'm going to turn this on and off. And for me, getting rid of the red, even though it's not a huge change, is the difference between night and day in terms of the way this image looks relative to the weight that's on the main subject and how I move through the image. From there, I did a major levels adjustment and I applied it in a local way to the light itself. I don't want to go so far as to make it look like this light is on, but I would like to give more of a sense of the light as if it's a light that's off, but there is the side light that is hitting this and giving us more detail in the light. I keep wanting to take this as a subject matter and create local contrast and a center of interest here that can play off of the guard. And so there's the levels change, and then I added just a tiny bit of color to the idea of the light itself in there. Didn't want to go so far as to make it look like it had been turned on. I just want this area to do a job of rhyming sort of a symmetrical way, moving on the y-axis with the guard. And then I came in and I added some more local contrast to the arches. I love the quality of line back in here. There's quite a bit of contrast on the guard. I feel like this background can take more local contrast. And so if I option click on the mask here after making the change, you can see how I applied it locally and really tried to bring out the edges of the arches. So here is before and here is after. And this is where we started. And this is where we have ended up. Would love to hear your feedback about the video today. Stunning image to start off with. Really great quality of light, and I love the symmetrical framing. Really powerful color here on the main subject relative to everything else. Love the specularity of the light on the guard. Say a big thank you to Enzo for sharing this image with us. Big thank you to you for being here. Hope to see you again real soon on the Mindfly.